This is Alexander Sakharov from University of Canada West, and you're listening to S.M.E Stories podcast.
You are now listening to the next great small business podcast. Welcome to the S.M.E Stories podcast, where it is all about small businesses in Canada. And here's your host, Ken Alfred.
Hey everybody, thanks for on the show. We got a great episode today with assistant professor from University of Canada West, Alexander Sakharov. Alexander holds an MBA from Holt International Business School in Boston, Massachusetts. We also served as a vice president of Holt European Business Club and coordinator of the third Holt VC and Entrepreneurship Summit in 2013. He also holds a Bachelor of Science in Economics from Nizhny Novgorod State University in Russia. Professionally, Alexander has over 16 years of hands-on experience with for-profit and not-for-profit organizations spanning numerous industries, including high-tech, banking, insurance, and retail. Alexander is a co-founder and managing partner for Grizzly Power, a household exterior cleaning and maintenance company in Vancouver, British Columbia. I think what's a really cool story that you're going to hear is how he actually started his career working at a furniture shop in just one location and being able to expand it to 90 locations. So I think it's going to be a great story. So Alexander was a great guest. So sit back and absorb him. All right, guys, we have Alexander Sakharov. How are you doing?
Well, I'm doing good. I'm looking forward to summer weather. So hopefully it's gonna be better like in a few weeks, maybe in a few months. I'm located in Vancouver, so you never predict Vancouver weather.
Well, yeah, with Vancouver is really nice because the fact that for those who've never been to Vancouver, it doesn't really have in normal Canadian, there's like the 4 seasons, right? Spring, summer, fall, winter. Within Ontario, you kind of get all 4, right? Vancouver is one of the most stable temperatures I think I've found is that, when there was a little bit of a heat wave, that, for most people, they're like, oh, we have to get an air conditioner. There wasn't a lot of air conditioners to my knowledge from when it was really hot in Vancouver that they were like, where do we get these air conditioners? Well, I think people knew of air conditioners, but they never actually, it wasn't like sold at big box stores where they'd be like, oh, if I need an air conditioner, I can just grab it. But the fact that where Vancouver is also located is that if you just want to drive a little bit more north, you're in ski country, right? My brother and sister-in-law live in North Vancouver, and they like that they can play baseball and go skiing roughly on the same weekend if they really want to. So that's really great. So
exactly. That's the beauty. That's the beauty of the city.
And the funny thing is, listeners, here we have Alexander Sakharov. He's actually an assistant professor. So usually we'll have small business owners or business owners and they talk about their stories. But the funny thing about Alex actually is that he's been a professor, but he started a bunch of businesses that I think you're going to be interested to hear about that. So Alex, what's your story?
Well, let me start my story from, I believe, 2013, 2014. This is actually the time when I got into small business environment, because before that I used to work in bigger corporations, and in 2013, I think it was, and the beginning of 2014, this was the time when I joined the furniture retail chain back in Russia. I used to live in Russia at that time, and this was at that time a 5-people company with 0 stores, just an idea in the mind of the owner. And I joined as basically the hired manager. I was a business development director there. And the idea was to build the retail chain. So basically when I joined, there was nothing, just an idea in our minds and just a few people in the office. I remember there was a small office. Later on, in a few years, we grew into the big retail chain with, I believe when I left, there was around 96 stores across Russia, mostly European part of Russia. And we had like over 150 people.
Pause there for 1 second, Alex. So if the listeners heard that right, so you started off with 5 people, maybe even including yourself, in a furniture retail company. And I don't know, how many years were you with them?
Like 3.5.
3.5, and that grew to 90.
Exactly.
Talk about multiple X growth. So, you're going to have to, I didn't want you to skirt over that thing really quickly, Alex. I need you to kind of break it down to some of the listeners to say, well, holy crap, that's pretty cool. How did you do 90 stores in 3.5 years?
So first of all, it was intense. I would be honest. We had a plan to open several stores every month. And what does it mean to open the store? You need to organize basically you need to organize the layout of the store. You need to find the property. You need to hire people. You need to run marketing campaign, because usually we open the stores in new city. So every new store was in the new city. And then we expanded inside the city. But anyway, it was very intense. I would say what really brought us to the success of opening so many stores. I'm going to probably speak a little bit later about the failures, because, well, they didn't come without the failures, of course. But what brought us to this intense success is probably the motivation that we got from the team, because the initial team that we got, the founder of the company, he still is very talented in hiring people who have the same peace of mind like he has. So he gathered the team that was super motivated. As I mentioned earlier, started with nothing, but had a very, very clear plan of what's going to happen the next 3 years. So we had this clear plan, and we just tried to stick to this plan with help of each other, motivating each other with this. And then later on, when we grew the team, we basically tried to hire people like-minded people with the same peace of mind, with the same motivation, people who believe that it is possible. Because many people didn't believe. Many people, when we hire people and say, like, we are like 20 people and we open 3 stores every month. Some people say like, oh, no, that's not what we believe in. That's not what we're going to do. And they laugh because it's a hard work. But
Right. Aggressive growth, right? So there was that.
aggressive growth. Yeah, yeah. As I mentioned, we made some mistakes, which I'm probably going to talk a little bit about later. But at the very end, we had 96 stores. We increased brand awareness. We ran speaking of marketing, we ran some really nice viral campaigns, which again, I'm probably going to share the information about them a little bit later. But yeah, that's how it happened. It was intense, but it was great time.
Yeah, I mean that's a really cool story. And just so I understand too, right? So there's always this thing that I hear in business where it's like, okay, do you like when we're talking about salespeople now specifically? So do you hire a commission only, or do you hire someone that's salary based with with a smaller commission, or just salary based altogether?
Mm,
What's your opinion on what you should have in a store, like, or just in a in an organization altogether? Do you want
mhm,
a mix of the both, or do you kind of prefer just one kind to really drive, especially if the goal was aggressive growth?
mhm,
My
mhm,
assumption, and I guess I could be totally wrong here, is that you probably wanted to compensate the salespeople, the more they can land a deal, I assume, right?
mhm, mhm. Well, in our case, that's a great question, because in our case, that was actually a very complicated part and confusing part in the very beginning. It's all about like trial and errors. So in the very beginning, we hired people mostly for salary, especially salespeople, and we realized that when the person has salary only, especially if we talk about sales, this person might not be that motivated, because salespeople, they are usually very motivated. They're usually, they usually aiming to sell more, and we need to motivate them somehow. Uh, I would say support their internal motivation, intrinsic motivation. So what we did later, we divided the salary into 2 parts, like the fixed salary and the commission. But even then, we faced some challenges, because if you raise their commission, then they try to sell more, of course, but it hits their profitability. You understand that, well, once the store sells a lot, at a certain point of time, it starts like hitting their profitability. But if you decrease their commission, obviously it hits the motivation. People don't want to sell a lot because they don't see the reason. Well, we sold furniture. Furniture is not very complex product, but it's usually a relatively long-term sale. You don't go shopping furniture like you go shopping grocery, right? Like
Yeah,
if you want to
they're not
buy,
consumable. They're not consumable where
yeah,
you have to buy them multiple times. It's like you might get add-on sales, like, okay, you sell a certain piece of furniture and then you can sell some accessories that go with it. But yeah, it's not, and it's usually a fairly, it can be a very pricey product depending on what market that you're looking for, right?
mhm, mhm. Well, not in our case. In our case, it was not pricey. Actually, our like product segment was an affordable
Okay.
furniture. I would say we targeted those people who prefer to buy cheap but a high quality furniture. So we tried to get somewhere in the middle between like very cheap uh, furniture of a low quality and very expensive furniture of a very high quality. So we tried to get somewhere in the middle. And again, this is a different story how we tried to target the customers, the right customers. We also had some made some errors in here, but anyway, even if it's not very pricey product, it's still not the product that like people buy like this, especially if it's like type of furniture that you need to
How many
literally
sofas can you
fix.
possibly buy, right? Like if you're buying just
Yeah,
a new
yeah,
place,
yeah,
how many sofas do you need?
yeah,
One. That's all you need, right? Okay,
exactly.
so where did you move on? I know I'm going to probably touch upon a few more
Mhm.
questions about that particular operation a little bit later, but so how you moved on from this very successful furniture retail shop, and where was your next step?
Yeah. So I moved to Canada. So that was one of the reasons why I left the company. Unfortunately, it was very sad to leave the company because I when you start a company from the ground, you kind of you get many attachments to it, right? So, but I had to do it, and I moved to Canada. And I when I came to Canada, I had a little thing in my mind. I wanted to start my own business because at that company in the furniture retail chain, I was a hired manager. Yes, it was the management position. I had many like flexibility for decision making, but it's still not the business that you own. And I
Yeah,
wanted to start my
you weren't the founder,
yeah,
basically, right?
yeah. And I would say that this is, by the way, as an immigrant by myself, and I communicate and communicated and I have been communicating with many immigrants for the last 7 years since I arrived. I would say this is the idea in the mind of many immigrants to come to Canada and start their own business. One of the reasons might be that it's not very easy to find a job when you just arrived, you just landed. But at the same time, I see that many immigrants are actually coming to Canada with some idea in their mind. And the only step to do is like you mentioned, it's a simple step, but it's not an easy step, right? So I think I was the one who came to Canada with the idea to start a business, and I didn't have any specific idea, so that's why I raised my idea here. And in 2019, I started a business called Grizzly Power. I co-started it with with a friend of mine. He actually was the one who brought me into the business. That's another
Oh,
interesting story to speak about. But he was the one who actually brought me to this business, and he shared some ideas when we were walking in the street. He shared some ideas like, I want to start business. And I said like, you know what? Can I be like a value to your business? Can I help somehow? Can I join? And well, and he said, yeah, I need like a person who's going to be responsible for some marketing and development activities. Why not? So yeah, and in 2020, I co-founded another company, which unfortunately didn't succeed. So we suspended the project a year later for several reasons, including that there were 2020. You remember that time? It was a little bit hard time, right? For starting
nothing
the
happened to my knowledge, Alex. What happened in 2020?
there were something
S
happening, right? But
something
and
happened.
yeah, it actually was a hard time. We didn't really realize it at that time because we started it in the very beginning of the year. But it was later on we understood it was very hard time to find investors because investors they were they started hiding behind the desk, looking for really really valuable projects that they're like 100% confident will get the return, right? So we struggled to find the investments, and we had to suspend the business in a year. But that was another amazing experience for me.
Interesting. So let's talk about the Grizzly Power that you started before. So what does it do, and how big is the team that you guys have right now?
So Grizzly Power is the exterior cleaning company. So basically, what we are doing different types of exterior washing, which includes siding washing, roof washing, windows cleaning, concrete washing. Well, here in Vancouver, we have since the humidity is pretty high, in spring we have lots of green stuff around the house. And the driveway is green. The roof is full of moss, especially like the north part of the roof is full of moss. So this is something that people obviously would like to remove when it's sunny outside. They would like to get rid of all these like moss and mold stuff outside of their house, and this is what we help them with. We mostly work with contractors at this right now. It's a seasonal business, so there is a high season in spring and high season in fall, because besides of power washing and exterior washing, we also do gutter cleaning, which is again the peak season of gutter cleaning is fall, when the leaves fall down and people see overflowing, see that there's something in their gutters, which definitely prevent water to flow freely. So this is something that we do in fall. So this is another like peak of the season. Winter is, I would say, no season for us, and specifically for us. I know that some exterior cleaning companies, they do have some business in winter because they do have some side projects, like a little bit different. They kind of switch the tracks for the winter time and then switch back in spring to the power wash.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's interesting. So what was it about the power washing then, Alex? You said you started it and you're thinking of different business ideas. So list through some of the listeners. What were these other business you were thinking of starting? And then what led you specifically to start Grizzly Power?
So, Grizzly Power is a household business. So basically, Grizzly Power as exterior business is a great example of small business, but it might not be a great example of startup if we speak about startup as something innovative. So the idea in my mind when my friend brought me to the company, invited me to be a part of the company, the idea in my mind was to grow Grizzly Power not in the regular way how small businesses are growing. So maybe use some innovations, maybe use some. Well, I used to work as a business development director in the furniture retail chain, and one of the biggest parts of my work responsibilities was marketing, and I had flexibility there to do very creative marketing. We ran some viral campaigns, as I mentioned already. So my idea was to be creative when you grow a regular small business company, because once again, exterior cleaning, there's nothing creative what you hear when you speak about exterior cleaning. But my idea was to make it a creative company, to use a creative approach to the company growth. Later on, when I started another business with another friend of mine, with another partner, we were running Grizzly Power at the same time. So Grizzly Power was operating, but another business that we started was actually a startup. It was related to that was the web platform that helps people to understand the conversion rate, not just to see the conversion rate. Like there are many tools that actually help you to see your conversion.
Like currency conversion, or are we talking like
Oh, sorry,
measurements?
the website conversion.
Oh, website conversion. Okay.
Yeah, website conversion. So there are many tools that help you to see the website conversion, like Google Analytics, for example, is
Oh,
doing.
that's what you mean by conversion. Okay, to
Yeah,
convert a person visiting your
visitors
site to actually getting a
to the
sale.
consumers.
There
Yeah,
we go. Got it.
or to the leads. Yes. So basically, our platform it uses some algorithm that helps to user to understand where exactly the conversion is coming from. In other words, what elements of the website positively or negatively impact the future conversion. So this is something that was really technical, mostly technical. And my co-founder, he was a software developer, because I do not code, so I'm not a software developer by trade, but he was a software developer, and it was something that was really interesting for me from the technical part, from the startup part, and I was excited to, it might be hard to raise external investors money for a regular exterior cleaning business, but it was kind of the opportunity to raise investments for a tech company, which is in the trend, right? There are not that many people who invest in cleaning company, but there are many people who invest in tech companies. So
Interesting.
yes,
That company is still running right now?
no, that company we suspended it, unfortunately,
Oh,
as I
that's the one you
mentioned.
were talking about
Yeah,
before.
that's the one.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So Unfortunately, it didn't go that well how we expected, but we blame the virus. We blame the COVID-19 time because, well, it was a hard time for everyone. So, however, I believe that obviously, we're human beings, so we probably made mistakes, but we still blame the environment that like investors
Yeah,
are
of
not
course.
there
And
like they are right now.
well, yeah, I think that's the thing people have to understand too, right? Because, when I have guests on the show, I always make sure to ask them about what were their successes and failures, right? And you hear Alex kind of going into some of the details of why certain things didn't fall through. And I think that's important for the listeners to know because maybe the idea, like for those who are actually looking to start something, that initial idea, either one might be very limiting in terms of, okay, I don't know if I can expand it, or two, it might not work. And it's okay, because at least you've given it a really good attempt, right? You tried,
Mhm.
because with Alex's experience, it's not like he was a rookie for it, right? Like he started businesses in the past, he grew companies. So it's not like, so Alex knows what success is, but even some of the successful as Alex, sometimes, there's a venture that unfortunately had opportunity, but unfortunately we couldn't get it to work. And that's okay as well, because I think in our experience, he has more successes than failures, which is good. Otherwise, he wouldn't be on the show. If he was failing everything, I wouldn't have him on here, right?
Absolutely.
So you started with Grizzly Power. You tried the website conversion companies, right? Did you do any other business as well?
No, not by this moment, because well, as you know, I'm assistant professor at the
I was going
university.
to touch into that, how that transitions that. So before we jump to the
Okay.
University of Canada West here, so your current business for Grizzly Power, how big of a team do you guys have running right now?
We do not have a big team right now because once again, I think I mentioned it. We work mostly with contractors. So
Right,
basically, I'm doing main customer relationship things, and
right.
I'm also doing the marketing things. Uh, Most of the communications with the client on the site are done by the contractor. Depending on the scope of the project, we might have different contractors. We have contractors who work with us. I would say on a regular basis, but still, in in case we need more people, because sometimes projects they require more people, we hire more contractors,
Oh,
and
that's what you mean. Yeah. So like you're going to be running it, but you hire out subcontractors to
yeah,
help fulfill
yeah,
the work. And yeah,
absolutely.
how many subcontractors do you normally work with?
Well, I usually work with two or three contractors.
Sometimes you
Uh,
add more, right?
Yeah, sometimes I have more because sometimes the projects are like bigger. So sometimes I need to hire like two, three contractors for one project because it depends. If, for example, if we wash a big building, then one contractor might not be enough to cover the scope of work. So then we hire a little bit more contractors
Okay.
depending on the project
So
once
you
again.
like to keep it lean, right? Because you don't want to have hire all. Like, I think that's what people need to be careful of is to hire more people. I think for owners, when they hire that first person, they feel like I'm there now because I actually have someone. But
Hmm.
then when you hire too many people
Hmm.
and you don't have enough work to give them, it's better to be busy than not busy, right? So the challenge would be to hire slow, fire fast, and keep as lean as possible until the work dictates that you need another person, which is really
Hmm.
good, right? Because I think people make that mistake then. So what is your last question on before we start talking about the University of Canada West here is what is your vision then for Grizzly Power? Like you're starting it, you're working with a lot of contractors right now. Are you looking to actually, how big are you looking to grow it?
That's a great question. I'm gonna share what I was thinking about like for the last maybe half year or so. I have an idea in my mind. My vision is to grow the business to the franchise
Oh,
network. So honestly, what I have in my mind is to set up or settle the operations in the company in a way that I can start sharing the experience of the company with some other partners who might actually purchase the franchising. So uh, the long-term vision, I would say, for Grizzly Power is to grow it to more franchising business rather than like focus on exterior like still stay in the exterior cleaning industry, of course, but do it more a franchises rather than direct operations.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely great. And the funny thing too is that you talked about franchise. Like my last guest that you're probably going to see, probably it'll be released a little bit later on. Was that's what his company basically is. He is it's called Stretch Med. That is
Uh-huh.
a franchise company, but he actually is starting a group. He's starting another business that deals with business who want to franchise. So it's
Mm.
kind of like that third party view to say, hey, you
Uh-huh.
want to franchise your business? We'll audit your thing to see what are the blind spots that you have.
Uh-huh.
So before you decide to go, because I didn't realize this, there's a lot of things that you have to make sure of before you
Mhm,
franchise it,
mhm.
right? Because I think I remember reading, like looking through like franchise magazines, and everyone gets allured because they're like, oh, you know what? This business is only a $5,000 startup. I have 5,000. I could I could buy a franchise, and
Mhm,
there's like
mhm.
no support system in place, and you're kind of left on your own,
Yeah.
right? So it's kind of nice that you have a goal for that, which is really
Mhm,
cool.
mhm, mhm,
So, all right, then we already talked about social media already, because you said you talked about it a lot,
mhm.
about all your viral campaigns, and we're going to touch upon that when we hit the tips from the pro segment here. But let's transition into University Canada West. So how did you become an assistant professor, and what do you teach? Like, I
Mhm.
don't know. Yeah, I
Okay,
think I know.
good question. So I started teaching, generally speaking, not at UCW, but generally speaking, I started teaching in 2011. And this is when, like, initial idea of teaching was I have some experience. Why don't I share it with others? And I'm still keeping this teaching philosophy. I share what I have because, like, if I don't share it with anybody, uh, how can we make the world better, right? And when I share, I realize that other people, they got my experience, they got my success stories, they got my failure stories as well, and this is where they learn. So I started teaching a while ago, and when I arrived to Canada, I had in my mind that I want to continue teaching. Besides, well, for the last 12 years, I remember, I think 12 years, yeah. I always had two directions, like teaching and being in business. So when I teach, I want to stay updated about how things are going in the industry. So I came to Canada and I had idea to continue teaching, continue sharing what I have, and continue gaining the experience as well. And this is how I got to University of Canada West. And what I'm teaching there, I'm teaching marketing and entrepreneurship courses.
What a surprise.
Yeah.
He knows what he knows this stuff. So yeah, that's great. So how many students have you taught, or how many courses do you teach? Because that title of marketing and
Mhm.
entrepreneurship, is that one course? Is that two different courses? And how big is your class?
Well, if I someday, one day, I decided to like calculate in my mind, like how many students have I taught for all the years that I've been teaching, and I think it's like thousands of students already, by thousands maybe, because I had really big classes. So on average, I have around like 150, 200 students every term, and I teach mostly, like, the courses that I teach are marketing management and e-commerce as well, and entrepreneurship courses related to entrepreneurship. And well, in terms of how many courses I usually teach, well, I would say 4 or 5 courses.
Wow.
So it keeps me quite busy. Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Like, that's the thing. Usually, we always have like small business owners here, and it's nice to actually have a professor from the academic side that
Hmm.
can also see what could be the new potential crop of
Hmm.
entrepreneurs. And so, what have you noticed about your students that are taking your courses? Like, is there a couple of common themes that they're taking your course because of this, or is it something like, I really want to learn that?
Hmm.
What have you
Hmm.
noticed?
Hmm. Well, I would say many students would like to learn the startup environment here in Vancouver. I'm also the Startup Grind UCW chapter director, and this is the basically chapter that helps students to connect with industry professionals, like from startup community mostly. So I would say many students are curious about startup community here in Vancouver. Many students are Many students are interested in how to raise investments, how
Oh, raising
to,
capital and stuff? Yes.
yeah, the capital stuff, because again, the way how people raise money, how people communicate with investors, I think it differs from like country to country. So those students who are coming from different countries, obviously they are curious to know how things are going on here, specifically in Vancouver, because we know there are many tech startups in Vancouver, and I would say there is quite strong startup community here in Vancouver as well. And this is what students are looking for. Many students are looking for to get inside this community to learn more about like how to do the very first step. Last time, for example, in Startup Grind chapter, we made the event which where we brought people from current startups, but we also brought people who are related to startup visas and who actually communicate with newcomers about how to start the business. And we've noticed a big interest from those students who came from other countries, like how to do very first steps.
Yeah, I
Very
think they're looking for the structured step, because I think when you've been living for a while here in Canada, and you can YouTube as much as you want, you could go online and try to find, oh, here are the 10 steps to starting any business. That gives you a little bit of an idea, but to actually hear like, professor like Alex to actually kind of go a little bit in depth to say, yeah, here are the steps that you generally have to do, but here's are some of the little things that you have to also understand as well, because it's not just going to, I can't remember what the name of the company or name of the site, but when you have to register your business name,
Mhm,
right? Like, but I've made so many mistakes doing that. I had to create a business twice. No,
mhm.
3 times. Because the first business I created was I was a personal trainer, and I was going to do, okay, I'm going to start personal training. So I'm on the website. I'm entering my information to say, here's, what it is. I'm going to be a sole proprietorship and all that. So here's what we're going to do. But I couldn't think of a name. And I said, all right, submit, save, good. And I thought, oh, I can go back into it and change the name once I figure it out. Once I figure out the name, you couldn't do it. You had to redo a whole new, you had to pay another fee to
Mhm.
redo it from the beginning again. Right. And of course, Alex, I came up with the dumbest name you could possibly imagine for me, which where I completely call it by my whole name. One of the worst mistakes you can make, unless you literally want to keep it just your name.
Mhm.
Or as an inside joke, I used to work at a consulting firm. If you ever want to start your own consulting firm, all you got to do is put your name and associates. That's the
Right.
easiest way to start your company. But when I was doing in the fitness business was my name, fitness and performance training. Try putting it on a business card
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
or putting it on a website. Ridiculous. So you learn a lot of these things that I think I should have talked to Alex first before I did that. And he could have said, yeah, maybe you don't start with that. Maybe start with what you want to do first. And maybe that registering your business name is a little bit afterwards. That's kind of like not the first step that you can do.
Mhm.
Figure out your processes first. Who are your clients? How are you going to charge? How are you going to get paid? What's your HR systems like? How do you deal with customers and clients? How are you going to find funding? All these different things that I think, like what I was saying, is a lot of students who are coming in from other countries to try to figure out, what's the best way to start a business here in Canada. So that's really cool there. So
Yeah, there are many things that are hidden behind the curtain. You can, like you mentioned, you can go to YouTube and watch like first 5 steps to start the business, and it's going to be very informative. However, it's not going to tell you the little bumps that you're gonna see and challenges that you're gonna face, because every case is unique.
well, yeah, absolutely right. And like back to that franchising thing here, I think I mentioned on my previous episode with StretchMed here was that, if someone was going to try to, if you were going to start your own company, and let's say you were thinking of a franchise, and I use my daughter as an example, she wants to start her own restaurant, and she's only like 12, so it's not like it's going to happen anytime soon. But when we start discussing it, if we're being serious about it, it's like, okay, well, when you're going to go to apply for a business loan, go into the bank and say, I want to start my own restaurant versus, yes, I'm purchasing a McDonald's franchise. Which business will the bank want to lend to? The one that is not really known. I mean, your food could be better than McDonald's,
Mhm.
but the systems aren't there. They don't know that versus, oh, McDonald's. We know what that is. We know what the system is. We know what it generally is. Which one do you think the bank's going to lend to? Most likely the franchise, right? So
Yeah.
you have to be very, very careful, and you have to really, you know, if you're going to go through regular financing, like going through a bank, make sure you have your ducks in a row, right? You have to have
Mhm.
all the details because they will be scrutinizing every single thing about it, right? Because
Yeah.
the bank makes money when they lend you money or when you start paying them back money. So they need that stuff there. So
That's what we are talking about in small business class and small and entrepreneurship class, like how to make your case unique in a very positive way. So you can raise your money and you can start the business without any major bumps.
well, yeah, and that's the thing too. I think Alex and I, we both want everyone who's listening to succeed, right? But we're not going to paint an a rainbow picture that, oh, it's going to be roses and unicorns. That you'll start it, and then people are going to give you money for very little work. Do you want to know, Alex, a business that I thought of? Thankfully, I did not start this business.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
It was a reminder services business. This is back
mm-hmm.
in early 2000, I think.
Uh-huh.
I was in the gym, I was working out, and I thought, man, because if you think about it, so this is before smartphones, folks, and this is
Mhm,
before Palm Pilots or all those other things.
uh-huh.
I was coming up with a service that was literally going to be a reminder service. So you'd be paying, a monthly fee, right? And what we'll do is I would have an associate there that's assigned to your account manager, that will remind you of every single thing that you needed to have done. So you would kind of say, almost like an assistant to say, okay, pick up the groceries. Okay, you have to set an appointment with this. Okay, you got to pick up your kids here. And based on the communication method that the client wanted, did they want a phone call? Did they want a pager?
Mhm.
So that's I'm really dating myself. This is really
Uh-huh.
back in that time to think that, man, that would be a phenomenal business until the smartphone came out, and now you don't really need that business. So my business would have probably went under if I really did try to pursue that
But initially, it was a good idea. At that time,
at that time.
probably
Yes.
it could have it could have been very successful initially. But then, you need to. That's why I'm saying you need to figure out the environment, like one step ahead environment, right? You need to think 1 day ahead, 1 week ahead, and see what's going to happen
Yeah.
outside, and maybe
Future. Yeah. Long-term planning.
in
So
the future.
having those 3, 6, 9, 12 months, 24
Yeah,
months,
yeah,
36 months, that vision, because my business, like you said, in the short term, I might have made money for that
mhm,
first year,
mhm. Yeah, yeah.
but then how do you grow it? What else do you do? When the BlackBerry came out, and I'm really dating myself because I love BlackBerry back in the day, that would have probably done really well too. And that's okay. Well, how can we utilize that? So if I didn't think about that, whatever. So
Yeah.
enough about that there. So, all right, let's talk about tips from the pro segment here, because you've started a lot of businesses and you've seen a lot of students. And maybe we'll piggyback a lot
Mhm,
off of what you have here. Then, so what was the biggest lesson learned for
mhm.
your failures that you covered while starting your entire career? So your biggest success and your biggest failure.
Okay, I would say plan ahead, like I mentioned a few minutes ago. Um, and how can you plan ahead? One of the ways is talk to your customer, and this is an essential thing that I would probably recommend to those who start the business. Do not hesitate to talk to your client, because at the very end, you create the product or service not for yourself. You create it for the client who's going to use it, who's going to buy it, consume it. But how do you know what your clients want unless you talk to your clients, right? So I would say be open enough to talk to your clients, ask questions. That's totally fine to talk to your clients. Maybe not to all, but definitely there will be some clients who will be open to talk, open to share some insights, some ideas that they have in their mind regarding your product or service. So I would say do customer discovery. This is really important. Uh, do your research before you do any steps. Um, Let me use my example, Grizzly Power example. In the very beginning, when we started the business, we were thinking about, okay, what can be difficult in cleaning, right? Well, it's a pretty easy process. Pressure washing. You take pressure washer, you turn it on, you wash. That's it. But actually, when we started researching, when we started learning, it's it's not a rocket science, but it is a science in a certain way, because you need to understand, for example, if you wash the siding, you cannot use the high pressure on siding or on the roof. And then there is a question, okay, how do I wash it if I can't use the high pressure? then you need to use some chemicals, for example. But you cannot use certain chemicals on one surface and you can use them on another. But there are plants around the house which
You
can
don't want to
die
kill the
because
plants. Yes.
yeah, you don't want to kill the plants and so on and so forth. So there are so many details that you need to understand before you even start doing this, right? So this is the recommendation that I would give to everyone. Like before you start something, again, be one day ahead, be one step ahead. Learn how things are going. Join different professional groups. There are tons of professional groups on different social networks. So join there. There are many people who are willing to help you. Even if you're a competitor, there are many people who are willing to share their own experience. So learn from them. So
Mhm.
be one step ahead.
Well, yeah, I think that that's a very important point, right? Because I think I can also relate to that as well from when I used to work in the fitness world. Is that personal trainers were very secretive with how they would train clients. Not in terms of training methodology, but client acquisition, right? Because I worked at a gym that was very, very unique. Because for those who don't know a lot about the fitness world in terms of becoming a trainer at, let's say, a big retail gym,
Mhm.
usually they'll bring you in, they'll do a little interview, they'll see you're qualified, they'll do maybe a mock session of you training somebody, and if they like you, they'll say, okay, no problem, congratulations. And there'll be some situations where they'll be like, congratulations, welcome to the team. You see that gym floor there? Go ahead. Those are your clients. Go find some. And then there might be some where it's like, okay, we'll give you a couple just to start with, but then you're responsible for,
Mhm. Mhm.
doing that else. Mine was a really good gym. They said, do not worry about client acquisition. We will give you the clients. All you got to do is train them to the best of your ability, help them get the results, and try to renew them. Right. So that was the whole sales pitch, was not acquisition, but retention.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Right. But then
Yeah.
what people have to fail to understand is that before the online training boom, you only can train so many people in one day.
Mhm.
So why don't to me, I was like, you can share the wealth there, man. That's because if I can train 8 people in a day, there is still, think about how many people are in a gym. Hundreds.
Yeah.
You tell me I'm going to train every single one. You can share that. Seriously. You don't have, well, and then when we got the DVD boom phase, and then of course the online training phase, okay, different story. You can now reach everybody, but
Yeah.
that's a really good, interesting thing to know. So, and where can people find and reach out to you?
Well, people obviously can find me on LinkedIn, Alexander Sakharov. I will be happy to connect, and well, go for it.
And
Connect.
and visit the university
Of
as
course,
well,
yes.
right? So
Visit
always,
UCW. Yeah, I'm not always there, but I'm there quite a lot of time during the week, and I will be happy to meet you and give you a tour.
yep, take his course, people. Take his course, if you
Absolutely.
can. All right. Well, Alex, thank you for being on the show. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Ken, for having me.
Hey you, do you need a voiceover? Well, look no farther. Northway Capital Group has your answer. Commercials and explainer videos, AVR and voicemail, health and wellness, corporate training and e-learning, announcements, documentaries, and biography. Contact us on social media or email us at northwaycapitalgroup@gmail.com. Thank you for listening to the S.M.E Stories podcast, which is owned by Northway Capital Group. Please follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Northway Capital Group.